T.B.Photo X1.5 to FX, and welcome back to another video. And this time it is the Nikkormat EL, or as I would call it in one of Nikon's promotional pictures, I am Nikon F0. Well, this little camera is, I think, it's a really cool piece. It's almost a relic that can still be used for 35mm film photography. And a little bit of background on this particular model. It was made between 1972 to 1976. The mechanics in this is a combination of clockwork and solid-state technology. So while some of the older ones were more mechanical, this one I think has a semi-electronic shutter and so on, because this also has aperture priority. So you select the depth of field and the camera selects the shutter speed appropriate for the light conditions. But anyway, this is a SLR with TTL, or through the lens metering. But anyway, it is battery powered. And the battery that is used in this camera, you can either use, and I have it written down because, you know, it's kind of fiddly to know exactly what battery model and make you need to use in it. But anyway, it's a 6V PX-28, or you can use 4 button cell batteries of the make SR44. Yeah. Well, why did I go for this? Because there's a couple of different models in the Nikkormat lineup, but I thought the EL is the first one that has the layout of the controls like we expect a classic SLR camera to have them. I mean, you have a self-timer over here, you have the depth of field preview button, you have the lens disconnect button, you have a little, lever here. I don't know if you can hear it. It's a mirror up dial here that if you rotate this upwards, you have actually risen the mirror inside the camera and you will have a mirror up shot, which is very good if you're going to use second long exposure times. But anyway, also on the top here, and this is basically why this is so much more like a, what we expect from a traditional classic SLR camera. Here you have the ISO, or in this case it's marked ASA dial. It goes between 25 to 1600. You have a hot shoe, traditional hot shoe on the top here with a center point connector. On the other side here you have the shutter speed dial, and it's a little bit special here because on the other Nikkormat cameras you basically had a color just like you adjust your depth of field or your f-stop on the lens. Behind it you had the shutter speed color to change shutter speed, but on this one it's a real dial on the top, and it goes from in orange letters it says 4, 2 and 1. Those are full seconds. Then you have half second, fourth second, 1/8 of a second, 15, 30, 60, 125, which is also the max flash sync shutter speed with this camera. And then 1 250th, 500th and 1 1,000th of a second. And then you have an A, and that's it. It's automatic in the way that it's aperture priority, that you choose the depth of field, the camera chooses the shutter speed. Also, a little thing here on the side, you have a PC port, so you can either have a hot shoe flash or you can use a PC port cable to have a flash triggered with this camera. What else is there to talk about? Well, what should we call it? In the viewfinder you have a center spot that is a little bit notchy, or whatever you want to call it. That's basically to aid in focus. So when that is blurry, you're out of focus, but when that becomes completely smooth, or lumpy I should say when it's out of focus, but it becomes smooth when you are in focus. So it's a very interesting way of having focus in this camera. Like most professional cameras, or professional, you have a ring instead of a square, or rather you have a square inside a ring, so it's semi-professional, but as I said, I call this the Nikon F0. But anyway, In the back here you also have this little button and a little LED here, and if you push that down, the LED comes on, and the reason for this is that this is the battery check for the camera. You also have the trigger here, which is a very great feeling trigger. It is threaded for either a cable release, or you can mount one of Nikon's proprietary raised triggers, so you can have your hand a little bit higher up, which many photographers tend to like during the time this was, the thing to use, so to speak. What else do we have here? Well, oh yeah, on the shutter dial, you can actually pull it up a bit and twist it. That's actually because this camera you can choose flash modes. Now it's showed with electronic flash, which is basically the only thing that is used today, or you can set it to bulb flash. And not bulb flash, those bulbs that small flash bulbs that you only get one use per bulb out of. More classic things that doesn't really exist that much today, but it's nice to know that you have that option with this camera. And also you have a little bit of a frame counter to know which frame you're on. And yeah, that's and then you have the film advance lever. I currently have a roll of film in this camera, but what you do is actually that when you put this out like this, you have a little red dot under it. That means that the meter in the camera is active and the camera will meter. And then after you have taken your exposure, you just advance to the next frame, like any other manual DSLR. Or DSLR? SLR, excuse me. But anyway, I think I say but anyway a lot of times, but we're gonna continue with that. In the viewfinder, you also have the meter. And the meter in this camera, it's a 60-40 center-weighted meter, and it uses a dual matchstick configuration. You have on the top, it says an A, then you have all the shutter speeds, and you both have a black needle and a green semi-transparent needle. The semi-transparent green needle corresponds to the actual shutter speed that you have selected at the moment, and the black one is the needle that the meter in the camera determines would be the correct exposure time setting, or the shutter speed setting for the light conditions that you have at the time of the photo. Well, as I put it, why the EL and not the TF or the FS? As I said, this has the layout of a traditional, what we expect from a traditional camera today. And I'm gonna show it a little bit now with this lens that I talked about in photo news number 7. It is the Nikon 28mm f3.5, and in order to use it with this camera, I'm gonna take off the front shield like so, and yeah. What you need to know is that this is a pre-AI camera, and that means AI is auto-indexing, so that means that you have to index the camera yourself. It's a manual process, it doesn't do it automatically. So what you basically have to do is that you put the lens on aperture f5.6. That's when the notch in this fork connector is lined up, so these two matches up. Then you twist it, and then you have to twist the aperture color to the minimum focus or minimum aperture to the maximum, and then you have the indexing measurement here that goes from 1.2 to 5.6, and in the middle you have 2.8, and now it's a little bit more stepped down than 2.8. It's a little bit more towards 5.6, so that means that now I know this camera is indexed correctly. So that's a little bit of what's what with it. It's a little bit of a quirk with it, but when you've used it a little bit, you don't notice it. So anyway, that's a little bit of, that's all there is about it. And I've put a few rolls of film through this camera, so in the end here I will have a little bit of a slideshow with the photos that I have currently taken with this, and that's pretty much it. And a little bit of a backstory with this. It's that why did I get it also? Because it's not only because this is the first one that has the layout as we suspect, or what we expect a classic SLR to have. It is also because my dad told me that one of his first cameras that he bought in the 70s was that his boss from the store he worked at was gonna go to Tokyo, Japan, and all the employees actually gave him money to buy them cameras, because in Japan they were basically dirt cheap. Thanks to import taxes and so on, they were very expensive here in Europe. So my dad actually owned a Nikkormat EL in the 70s that he had actually gotten by sending money with his former boss when he went on a business trip to Japan. So I thought that was kind of a cool story, but unfortunately he didn't have the camera, and then I found this one on Tradera for a bargain, and I thought, I'll get that, because if my dad has experience with it from before, it's just a cool thing to be able to say I have it. And it's a beautiful camera. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say with it. And for all you anoraks out there, you might have noticed that I have excuse me, a little bit of a cold still, but anyway, that I have a UV filter on the lens itself. Well, this, yes, I know that a lot of people tell me that any type of filter in front of the camera will suck detail and so on, and it will, but also people say that when you had, film photography, UV filters and so on had a legitimate use. So I can also say it's a little bit of an experiment on my part to see if maybe I take a picture with and without the UV filter, and after I've developed them, I might have a little bit of a look and see if I can spot a difference. If I can't spot a difference, maybe this lens filter will just go up on Tradera or eBay or something, and I'll just sell it. Well, that's pretty much everything, and I only got the camera as is. Got the camera as is. See if I can just take it, yeah, like so. I got it as is, and just with the front lid, and with this very period correct, in my opinion, excuse me, very period correct camera strap. I mean, can it become more 70s than this? It's basically synthetic, just vinyl and polyester. So yeah, I think that if anybody of you out there in YouTube land have any own experience with one of the Nikkormat cameras, I mean, drop a line in the comment and tell me how your experience with this classic piece of gear is. And I thought it was a little bit appropriate now also because now in 2017 Nikon is celebrating its 100th anniversary. So way to go, Nikon, and yeah, I think I'll end you with that. And as always, this is Tobias Bergström from T.B.Photo X 1.5 TFX, and I'd like to see you guys in the next video. And as always, please like, share, comment, and subscribe, as you're supposed to say in this YouTube malarkey. So take care from now on. Bye.